Hi, this is Dwyer. I'm a lawyer in Silicon Valley, California. I run a financial blog, cashupdate.info. Some of you may recognize me from my sports blog, gamblersadvisory.com. I'm here today to talk about the results of the bank stress tests that our government released today. Those tests are a complete sham. According to the test, 10 of the 19 banks need capital infusions. Bank of America apparently needs a capital infusion of $34 billion. All told, those 19 banks need capital infusions of about $75 billion. But understand, the government seems to be trying to put a happy face on the problem, because the bank stress tests were conducted before we have topped out on unemployment. Keep in mind, our unemployment rate is still rising. I understand unemployment is a lagging indicator, but understand that as I make this video, unemployment in Los Angeles County is 12%. Unemployment in the state of California, the biggest state in our union, right now is in double digits. It's at 10%, and both are rising. There hasn't been a month recently where unemployment has dropped. Not only that, the commercial real estate crisis is just beginning. And understand, it could be worse than our residential real estate crisis. Let's go through the math. In California, if a house is in default and a foreclosure takes place, the bank that financed the purchase of that house might be out $150,000 to $250,000. Contrast that with what happens when a commercial real estate building defaults. Then you're talking about a debt of millions of dollars. In fact, if that building is downtown in the high rent district, then that default might literally be a default involving 50 or more million dollars. Well, right now I would encourage the viewers of this video to go online and Google what's happening right now in Atlanta. Atlanta right now has a commercial real estate crisis. Several prestigious buildings in Atlanta have vacancy rates of 50% or more. That crisis is actually spreading all throughout the United States. It has just hit San Francisco. And like the residential real estate crisis, which was initially referred to as a subprime crisis, and which we now know was a full-blown real estate bubble, the commercial real estate crisis is being downplayed in its early stages. And so what you've had is a made-for-TV bank stress test at a time when our government knows that we're still having severe economic problems and that these problems are actually going to worsen. Sanford Bernstein did their own stress tests, and their conclusions were that the fitness of our banking system here in the United States actually depended on the unemployment rate. In other words, banks might be doing okay at 8.5% unemployment. If that unemployment rate gets to 10% nationally, or 12%, or 15%, then of course those same banks won't be doing as well. What just happened was that our government did a stress test at a time when they knew the numbers were going to be better than they will be in 2 or 3 months. When real estate bubbles pop, they pop quickly. The disruption becomes apparent. You just saw that in the residential real estate market collapse. Now the commercial real estate market is going to collapse. Our financial system is going to be under extreme pressure. And you saw how quickly a financial house of cards can collapse just by looking at the deteriorating portfolio of Merrill Lynch. Keep in mind, taxpayers gave Merrill Lynch more than $10 billion in bailout money. And of course, now we're finding out that Ken Lewis, the CEO of Bank of America, was so startled at how even after Merrill Lynch received that $10 billion, Merrill's investment portfolio had deteriorated so badly that Ken Lewis actually wanted out of that deal. And if you believe Mr. Lewis, he then heard some stern words, possible threats from prior Treasury Secretary Hank Paulson and Ben Bernanke. And so um, right now we're getting a dog and pony show. People are looking at a dead cat bounce in the stock market, and they're concluding that somehow we're going to have an economic turnaround in the third or fourth quarter of this year. I wish that were so. I root for America. I voted for President Obama, but any turnaround in a third or fourth quarter is simply too optimistic when we have the problems that we have. Understand, when the real estate market craters, it's not just the people who lose their homes who are financially devastated. The people who keep their homes are also seeing the value of their homes drop by 200, 250, in some cases 300, 350, $400,000. Your house is only worth what someone is willing to pay for it. And when there is a foreclosure on your block and someone can literally buy that foreclosed property for $200,000 to $250,000 less than you owe on the house, then unfortunately the value of your house drops in accordance with the most affordable comparable house on the block. And so right now we have an economy that is flooded with unrealized losses. We have a commercial real estate crisis on the horizon. We have the bond market showing signs of cracking. That was evident when the President of the United States, in what I consider one of the more astonishing moments of my life, started criticizing bondholders of Chrysler. In other words, the people who helped make that company possible, the people who actually enabled that company to employ anyone. I was shocked that the president was upset that those bondholders wouldn't take less than they would receive if Chrysler went bankrupt. And my point to you is that kind of pressure is being placed on bondholders all across the country. I would encourage you to keep track of the earnings reports of these companies. When a company is teetering on bankruptcy and that company has to get concessions from creditors, those creditors are then under pressure. We've seen it in the casino sector. My point to you is the bond market right now is under severe pressure. And of course, we had stress tests before that became evident to the American people. So don't believe your eyes. Excuse me, not don't believe your eyes, don't believe your ears. Whenever a politician or an elected official is talking, what I want you to do is to believe your eyes. If you see a lot of commercial vacancies in your neighborhood, if you have good friends who recently lost their jobs and are having problems even getting interviews, if you're walking through a residential area and you see a lot of bank owned for sale signs, and you realize that not only have the people who've been foreclosed upon lost their life savings, but the people who are still in the neighborhood have just gotten an equity haircut on their housing investment, then you'll know exactly how the economy is going. Don't believe the hype.